We come here every Saturday from 1 to 2 o'clock. And we are here to demonstrate that there is a basic structure of peace and human rights which is possible in this world. This is something you may not hear everywhere. The reality is that a huge portion of the population has been convinced that war is inevitable, that people will do horrible things, and that's just the way we are. The reality is that whenever populations have been given a chance to resolve their difficulties through non-conflict means, they manage to do that. We see it in our society all the time. This is a regular part of what happens in our society. Now, people are raising the issue here. They're saying, what about the terrorists? We have been hearing that for the last 15 years. This actually started underneath. It started underneath Clinton, okay? The reality is that this started under Clinton. And that, in fact, the first anti-terrorism law was passed under Bill Clinton. All right? And it started, of course, out of the fact that there was a huge terrorist event in this country. It was the terrorist events which happened in Oklahoma when the FBI was blown up by a veteran of the Gulf War who decided that that was the way to start a racial civil war in the United States of America, and that was what he wanted to do. That's why they passed that law, supposedly, although the reality, of course, is that the World Trade Centers had already been bombed once when that happened. And in fact, we caught all of those people and we put them into prison. All right? So the reality is that on 2011, there was every reason to understand that there were people who wanted to take down the World Trade Towers. And in fact, the government had been warned repeatedly by its own people that that was something that was going to potentially happen soon. In fact, that there was a plan to use airplanes to cause tremendous damage in this country. Our government actually did nothing. George Bush was informed that there were people who planned to use planes against us in August of 2001. Nothing happened. If they had taken the most simple precautions, the horrible disaster which happened in those buildings need not have happened the way it did. The reality is as soon as one of those buildings was hit by a plane, those buildings should have been evacuated. The opposite happened. People who were evacuating were told to go back up into those buildings. That happened because there was not an adequate warning to people who would have understood. And in fact, the guy who was the head of the World Trade Center towers was, he was a security guy who was from the U.S. government who would have responded and done the right thing if we had simply taken those kinds of simple precautions. So the reality is the first thing that we need to do as a country about the terrorists is actually keep our eyes open to what is actually happening. And the reality is that we have these ISIS people here on our in the whole middle area of the Middle East, in the very center of it, okay? In the center of the Middle East.
In the Trade Center? Why weren't you there? Then you wouldn't be here today.
So the reality is, okay, that ISIS was actually created by our occupation of Iraq. All of the members of ISIS were in our detention systems in Iraq. That's from the New York Times, okay?
Oh, yeah, right.
The most actually conservative papers at this point in time, okay? So the reality is the ISIS, thank you, the neoconservatives. Very good. So the reality is that ISIS is a creation of our occupation of Iraq.
That's right.
Just as Al-Qaeda in Iraq was a creation of the U.S. Persian Gulf War. Because the reality is that waiting in Kurdistan, which was created by our initial attack upon Iraq, of Iraq, you know, that's really low, okay?
Another armchair, Jim.
So the reality is,
You're an idiot.
I have to keep saying reality because there's a bunch of people who happen to live in fantasy land in this country. They live in fantasy land. They don't want to know the facts. They don't want to understand what's really happening. They live in Foxland, okay? They live in some other country, some other world than anybody else. The fact of the matter is, the United States of America created the ISIS machine in two ways. Both by detention systems, which systematically tortured people in Iraq, and secondly, because we carried out an assassination program in Iraq, which took out the whole upper level leadership of Al-Qaeda, which then became ISIS under this guy, Baghdadi.
Right.
Baghdadi was imprisoned in Iraq, in our detention systems. Almost all of his main leadership were people who were in prison with him, in our detention systems, for years, being abused, being tortured, and now we see the results of that torture. Now we see the results of our assassination campaign, which is an organization which is even more virulent. So what is the answer that we get? We should bomb more countries. How many times have we bombed Iraq? Many, many times now. The first Gulf War, 2003, 2008, there was a huge bombing campaign that actually took place in 2008 as part of the surge. This was actually what really decided what happened at that point in Iraq, was a huge U.S. sniper and bombing campaign that actually completely encircled the Shiite neighborhoods of the city of Baghdad and kept them for at least 6 weeks, totally cut off from the world. This was exactly what just happened to the Gazans. This is what Israel did to Gaza, okay? The same exact thing happened in the center of Baghdad. And the city was completely ethnically cleansed in this period of time. We put up 24-foot blast walls. What I'm saying is a fact, those blast walls and those checkpoints still exist in Baghdad. And the fact of the matter is that was the success of the surge, was the ethnic cleansing of Baghdad. The population of that city went from like 45% Sunni to like 20% Sunni. And the reality is the U.S. made this stuff happen. Now the good news in all of this is that in the United States of America there is a movement which is growing. And we see that movement, in the immigrant rights movement. We see that in the African American rebellion against the police murders, which systematically are killing people, especially young men in their community. We are seeing a movement being birthed and growing in reaction to exactly the kind of militarized policy which did so much damage in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it is growing in this country. People are sick of it. They are tired of it. They're tired of being harassed in their own communities. They're tired of this criminal justice system that locks up hundreds of thousands of people every year on minor drug offenses. This is it, okay? We are coming together as a movement in this country. It's happening, and it's going to be something that people have not imagined was possible. Because the people united can never be defeated. And the real threat to the people of the United States of America is not ISIS, is not Islamic terrorists. It is, the real threat to the people of the United States of America is a militarized government which has gone completely and totally out of control. Until we regain that control, this country is not going to be right. It's not going to be able to support itself, as huge amounts of the tax base of this country are being shipped out of this country by corporate transnational corporations that don't care anything about the people of the United States of America. And anybody who reads the outside pages of the business sections will know that what I'm saying is the truth. And I'll sign off there.